What we did today and yesterday was we downloaded a ready-made image called Nginx, and we were able to run it. Okay, but we can also create our own custom image. Means it will have some details which are not available in the default Nginx image. Okay, so that type of custom image is created using a Docker file. Okay, so in Docker file it has some particular format. Okay, and in that we'll be using some keywords given on this slide. Okay, so using a Docker file, we give some requirement and procedures. Okay, to construct a Docker image. Okay, and we will instruct the Docker file how to prepare that image. Okay, all those instructions are given in a Docker file. So most of the time the first line will be from. Okay, it specifies the starting image for your new image. Okay, so even though we are creating the custom Docker image, we need a base image. Okay, so on that base image we'll be creating we'll be adding some other layers, or you can say some other commands will be running. For example, we first install OS, and after that we install Nginx or some other applications like Chrome browser or Mac, Firefox and all. Similarly, we'll be having a base image, so that from will be given in that. For that particular base image, will give from download this particular image. Then the maintainer, the label means who has created this image, that is optional. Then some environmental variables. Okay, so this is important for developers. Okay, we are not directly involved in creating those environmental variables, so there will be some environmental variables which the programmers or developers will be using. Okay, and if you want that to use those environmental variables, we can specify that in the Docker file as well. Then we'll specify a working directory. Okay, why we need to specify a working directory, that I'll explain when we do the practicals. So we'll set a what working directory, so that everything will be copied there. So what we'll be copying, we'll be copying some code. Okay, in this case it will be the index.html. Okay, so we'll be using a copy command, but there is also an add command. Okay, so copy file will just copy the contents, okay, from one source to the destination, but add file, along with copying, it has an extra ability to copy URLs, to copy something from URLs as well. Okay, so this is the interview question: what is the difference between copy and add in terms of Docker file? So the difference is, add will also copy the files, but it can also copy from remote URLs. Then suppose we want that during building an image, okay, we want some commands to run. So using run command, we can run those command as well. Then the next is expose. So this expose is very confusing, but remember, it is only for documentation purpose. Okay, even if we suppose we want everyone to know that this particular image will run on port 8080, then only for documentation purpose we'll write expose 8080. Suppose the application is running on port 80, and if we write expose 8080, then the application will not run on port 8080. Okay, it will still run on port 80. It is only for documentation purpose. Okay, then entry point means what is the default command for the container to run. Okay, and the command cmd provides a command that can be overridden. Suppose we have given something in entry point, but still we want to override that. Okay, the default command, then we'll be using the cmd, and some other instructions are also possible, user volume argument and all, but that is not so important. This much is very important. So it might be a bit confusing for all of you, but just remember this: when we do some exercises it will be more clear. And this Docker image will have multiple layers. Okay, so multiple layer means, I just said that we'll be using a base image. Suppose we are using an Ubuntu base image. Okay, on that, if we run a command apt-get Java installation, then some Elasticsearch installation. So for, in short, you can say for each line there will be a layer. Okay, so there will be multiple Docker layers. It is just for documentation purpose. We are means just to know the theories. We won't interact directly with the layers and all. Okay, so this is one of the sample Docker file. We'll be also using this file for creating our custom Docker image. Okay, so here also we are using an Alpine image. Okay, so what is Alpine image? Like Ubuntu, CentOS, Red Hat, Alpine is also a very lightweight operating system. Okay, mostly used in containers. Okay, so we'll be downloading a base image, a very small image, which will have only a small means you can say footprint, nginx alpine, and we are just giving an label, okay, your name and email address. This is the port, okay, and app port, but this app port needs to be defined inside the uh, code, particular code. Then we are setting a user directory, that usr share nginx html. So we should know this nginx runs means where does the nginx store the default files. Okay, in Alpine it is stored in usr share nginx html. That's why we have set this as working directory as usr share nginx html. Then we'll be creating an app directory. This, that is not part of a docker file. We'll be creating a app directory, and that app directory will have all the code. So what it will do is it will copy that app directory inside usr share nginx html. Okay, and we are saying that expose 80 means it is only for documentation purpose. We know that Alpine this nginx runs on port 80. So we are just saying that this for documentation purpose, that this image, custom image, will also run on port 80. Okay, and then we are running a command nginx-g daemon off. It means inside the container run this command so that the container runs, okay, properly. So I'll quickly do this exercise. We'll do this tomorrow again along with you. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create an index.html file. So what I'll do is mkdir exercise. I'll give cd exercise. Why? Because we have multiple commands. The first one is index.html. I'm creating cat index.html. You can also create a file using vi editor. I prefer this because it becomes easy to copy paste. And after copying, just press Ctrl D to save. So I have an index.html file. Okay, but I forgot this. I have to create an app directory first. Okay, and inside that app directory, I should have index.html file. So what I'm doing is I'm just moving index.html file inside app. Okay, so we have an exercise directory, and inside that we have an app directory, and inside app directory we are having index.html. Okay, so the app directory is important, exercise directory is not important. Only for segregation we are doing this. And then we'll create a docker file. Control D, just to ls. So I have an app directory which is our code, and we have a docker file. So just open the docker file. Okay, I'll go inside the docker file using vi editor in case I need to edit something. This is not required. Okay, so I'm using a base image. Maintainer is my name. Okay, environmental port is not required, just for demo I'm adding it. The work directory, I know nginx in alpine stores everything inside usr share nginx html. So what we are doing here on the next line is we are copying the contents of app directory which we created, that is index.html, in this work directory. Work directory is set. After that we are just copying it. Dot means copy it inside the work directory which we have set. Okay, and expose. This is just for documentation purpose, and nginx will be running using this command inside it. Okay, so what we have, an app directory which has our code. We have a docker file. Okay, using docker file we can create our own image. So what we'll do is sudo docker build. We have to build an image. Okay, I'll just give it a name as localhost. Okay, and the image name, let's take the same name as given in the exercise. Okay, so I'm not giving localhost, it will confuse. Web app 1. Okay, simple. Just give the name of the image which we want to create, and dot means it will search for a docker file in the current location. Okay, just do sudo docker build. Sorry, sudo docker build. This is the tag, the name we have to give. Okay, so ignore this deprecated warning. We need to learn about docker. So what we did is sudo docker build -t web app. So one by one each line, each command is executed. So first line was our from. Okay, so it is downloading nginx alpine image from docker hub. Okay, in next line, this is the second layer. For each layer there is a number. Okay, on second layer it has set the label. Okay, then in the next layer app port 80 is set. Okay, the environmental variable app port 80 is set. Then the work directory is set as usr share nginx html. Then in the next line it is copying the app directory. This is the app directory. Okay, contents of app directory are copied inside usr share nginx html. Okay, and just run this nginx inside the docker. Okay, now if you do sudo docker images. Okay, I have two images. First one is the base image which is downloaded. This is the base image. First it downloaded the base image, and on top of that it has created one more image called web app 1. Okay, and we have just created the image. We are not having any container running. Okay, so next what we will do is we'll run that container. So just use this command. So what we are doing is run in a detached mode, map it on port 8081. We know that nginx runs inside the container on port 80. We're giving a name to the container as web app 1, and we are using the image that is web app 1. What I'll do is first we should see the image, sudo docker images. So this image web app 1 we are running. So this image is created using docker file. Okay, and if I do docker ps now, I can see on port 8081 our web app 1 custom docker container is running. Just to curl localhost 8081. Okay, so whatever we define in the index.html, it is showing it. So we defined in index.html, the same page was there. So if we try to access it from the outside world, okay, 192.168.1.11:8081. Okay, so it was in cache. So html web application. So this is earlier we were getting a default index.html, that is in nginx default web page. Now it is giving us our custom web page. In short, it is our custom image which we are running. So we'll do this exercise again tomorrow, but I just wanted to explain about docker file. I know you will be having questions, so you can ask the question about Docker file if any.